This isn't your typical happily ever after story. Today, we're unraveling a Reddit drama about family, sacrifice, and the moment you realize the people you care about might be holding you back. Buckle up, because this one's got layers. Story 1. I and my girlfriend are together for 4.5 years. We lived together since 3 years and I wanted to propose this August. But we had some open questions she always avoided to answer or just joked about this. It's about children. I always wanted children and I asked her, but she kept me on the don't think about that. We got time and it started to affect me more by the month. We don't have the best sexual chemistry, not perfectly fulfilling, but it's a point I wasn't so bad as I would say it's a no-go or so bad that I would look for it elsewhere. That's why I told myself that as long I and her are happy we can overcome this. But after some time as I tried to open up about those questions, she told me she has so many problems she can't handle my problems too. This made me insecure and it went so far that I can't cry or share my fears without being judged. Sexually, it had the effect that I wasn't in the mood anymore because it appeared that it was a chore for her to keep me at least satisfied. In working 100% keeping the house clean, cooking, chores and still supporting her. While she works 80%, she has her sport, she is very active and still complaining she has no time to reach her goals. Once I was so down I had a nervous breakdown, she wouldn't comfort me. She just called the ambulance and let them handle me. She said she is bad at comforting. Today we crashed out and talked about everything, and as I asked her about marriage she told me she was thinking more about it than me. After that I was fed up. I told her I already had the ring and it's breaking my heart that she thinks I never spend a second thinking about it. I know I love her and she loves me. But am I crazy to think that if you're nearly 5 years together I would like to know if we can have children together? But her answer was, not even in the next 5 years. And I'm thinking if I still invest everything I have in those 5 years, just to have a possibility for her to change her mind, I won't wait another 5 years until she thinks she's ready. A simple, yes I would love to have kids with you would be enough. But now I'm thinking it's better to end this now and find someone who has the same wish as me. Is it worth to put one of my biggest live dreams on hold just for the possibility of children, or should I start over? What would you guys do? Story 2. Just got back from a long-ass work trip. Been traveling a lot lately, barely slept, just completely drained. For once I said screw it and used my points to upgrade to first class. Never flown first before. My mom, 50s, happened to be flying the same route because we were both headed to a family thing. She booked her ticket separate from mine, just basic economy. I didn't think it was a big deal. At the gate I told her, hey, just so you know I'll see you when we land, I'm sitting up front. She looked at me like I killed her dog. Asked if I was serious. Then said, you're really gonna let your own mother sit in the back while you relax in first class? I thought she was kidding. She wasn't. Told me I was being selfish, ungrateful, disrespectful. That she raised me better than this. I said, Mom, I love you, but I paid for this seat with my own money and I'm exhausted. I just want one flight where I'm not sandwiched between 2 strangers. Now she's pissed. She told my aunt, who told my cousins, and now half the family's calling me an asshole for not giving her my seat. Honestly, I don't think I did anything wrong. But now I feel weird. Story 3. My husband and I are attending a wedding soon and I mentioned to him a month ago I want to drive to the wedding in our car. I told him I don't want to carpool with any other family members because it takes me time to get ready, and when we are ready to leave I just want to leave. I don't want to be bothered with anyone rushing me to get ready, forcing me to leave early, etc. My husband's mother calls him this morning and tells him she wants us to drop her to the same wedding, she has a car, and my husband immediately says yes. Then he tells me his mother says she would rather drive with us if we're going, and he claims he can't say no to that. Now for being upset he disregarded everything I said. Story 4. I am engaged to my fiancé John. His family spends a lot of time together, holidays, weekends, and frequent get-togethers with all the siblings and grandkids. John's dad retired this past May, and we already had a retirement party for him. Now his parents have planned a family vacation in November to celebrate his retirement again. They rented a large house out of state and invited everyone, siblings, spouses, grandkids, etc., for a full week, Saturday to Saturday. John and I were clear from the beginning that we probably wouldn't stay the entire time. I've always expressed that Thanksgiving is an important holiday for me to spend with my own family, and John told his parents early on that he wasn't sure we'd stay the full week because it was a long trip. We decided we'd attend the trip from Saturday through Wednesday, then head home so we could spend Thanksgiving with my family. Since then, there's been some subtle pushback. His parents have said things like, "It's just one Thanksgiving," or asked if John could stay even if I left. They've also said this is the first time the whole family is doing a trip like this in years and it might not happen again. I understand they're excited about the trip, and we're not trying to skip it. We're planning to be there for 5 full days. But I don't think it's fair to expect every adult to give up a full week of their own time and holiday plans, especially when we made our intentions clear up front. So for not wanting to stay the full week, even if it's disappointing to his parents. Story 5. It was the kind of summer break I usually looked forward to, a stretch of lazy days and no school. But this year, something was fundamentally off. The usual hum of the kitchen, the comforting scent of a meal simmering, was eerily absent. My mom, for reasons that remained a baffling mystery to me, had declared a culinary strike for the holidays. Since its summer break, she'd announced, "You guys can make your meals." We were a raw ingredients-only household, which meant no takeout, no ready-made meals, just whatever was in the pantry and fridge. I could cook, mind you. I wasn't completely helpless in the kitchen. Pasta, sandwiches, soups, I could handle those. But my skills were basic, mostly pan-frying and simple seasoning. That worked when we had decent, familiar ingredients. The problem was, we didn't. Lately, the house felt like a culinary wasteland. Days blurred into a hungry haze, punctuated by me trying to scrounge up anything edible. I'd skip meals, my stomach rumbling in protest, and resort to scraping up every bit of easy-ish food we could find. A few days ago, desperation had driven me to call my dad. He didn't live with us, working in a different area, but he'd come through, ordering some food that had felt like a feast. It was all gone now, a distant, delicious memory. The hunger gnawed at me. One evening, stomach cramping, I tried to talk to Mom. "I'm starving," I'd mumbled, my voice tight with frustration and weakness. She hadn't even looked up from whatever she was doing. "Since it's summer break, you guys can make your meals," she'd repeated, her voice flat. It wasn't like I was asking for a 3-course meal every day. I would have been thrilled if she just cooked one substantial dish and kept it in the fridge for the week. But she wasn't doing anything. The only things left were cooking oil and a few forlorn vegetables, like eggplants. Eggplant. My nemesis. I had zero experience with eggplant. How was I supposed to turn that into anything substantial with my pan-fry and season repertoire? The thought of experimenting filled me with dread. I was 15, yes, and I knew I should be able to cook anything, but when food was so limited, messing up a dish meant wasting precious ingredients, pushing us further into hunger. I couldn't just decide this was the time to learn advanced vegetable techniques. And no, getting groceries or a job wasn't an option for me. My parents were married, but living with Dad wasn't feasible. I'd be alone most of the time, and that was kinda illegal here. A heavy internal debate raged. My dad, bless him, really prioritized us eating well. He'd be furious if he knew the full extent of the situation. But then there was Mom. I knew she wasn't depressed or mentally ill, but she was definitely in a mental health dip due to some family issues, and probably didn't have the energy to cook. People had told me it would be unfair to complain to him, that she wasn't necessarily doing anything wrong given her stress. But how much longer could I manage like this? My stomach was a hollow echo, my energy levels plummeting. Was it truly unfair to tell my dad what was happening, even if it meant he might get mad at Mom, who was already struggling? I was starving, and I didn't know what else to do. Story 6. The email glinted on my screen, a beacon of hope in the dim light of my Michigan retail job. $21 an hour. Full benefits. A full-time job on a military base in South Carolina. It was more than just a pay raise from my $13 an hour gig. It was a launchpad, a real future. At 19, this felt like my golden ticket out. But my golden ticket came with a heavy price tag, one paid in guilt. I still lived with my legal guardian, whom I called Mom, and her husband, my stepdad. Mom, 50, took guardianship of me when I was a kid, after my biological dad passed and my birth mom gave up her rights. She wasn't blood, but she was family, or so I thought. Their financial situation was a constant, suffocating cloud. My stepdad, 54, was on dialysis 5 days a week, a brutal, exhausting routine. Mom couldn't hold down a regular job, she said, because she needed to be home for his treatments, so she hustled with Instacart. My $13 an hour, paltry as it was, had become a crucial piece of their survival puzzle, shoring up major household expenses. My income wasn't mine, it was theirs. The moment I told Mom about the South Carolina offer, about my plans to finally move, her face contorted. "If we end up homeless," she spat, her voice laced with venom, "it'll be your fault." She accused me of being selfish, of abandoning them. The words hit me like a physical blow, even though I knew, deep down, this was my chance. I even offered to send them money once I was on my feet, financially stable. It wasn't enough. It was never enough. Then came the second explosion. I'd reconnected with my sister, Mom's biological daughter, who was 27 and lived in South Carolina. She'd offered to let me stay with her family until I found my own place, a generous lifeline. When I mentioned this, Mom completely lost it. The fury in her eyes was palpable, a mix of betrayal and pure hatred. Their relationship, or rather, the lack thereof, was a long, bitter story. When I was 13, my sister's bio father bought her a car, and she and her husband packed up and moved to South Carolina. Back then, she'd pleaded with me to come with her, whispering that Mom was a narcissist and toxic. I hadn't believed her then, loyal to the woman who'd raised me. And if I had gone, Mom could have easily reported her for kidnapping. Since that move, they were estranged. My sister had even pointedly ignored Mom when she came up for my high school graduation, a public snub that had simmered into a permanent frost. For Mom, my staying with my sister wasn't just practical, it was the ultimate betrayal. I was torn, caught between a rock and a hard place. I genuinely cared for them, for the people who had taken me in. I had been helping, shouldering financial burdens that weren't mine alone. But I couldn't stay stuck, slowly suffocating in a dead-end job, forever responsible for their finances. This South Carolina job wasn't just a job, it was my life, my future, waiting for me. And the guilt, heavy as it was, couldn't outweigh the gnawing need to finally live it. Do you want to explore ways to navigate this conversation with your guardian and stepdad? Or perhaps look into resources for them once you've moved? Story 7. The old farmhouse was beautiful, sprawling and a little too big for just the two of us, at least in my opinion. But it was his beautiful, sprawling house, and my boyfriend, Mark, covered all the major bills. Rent, utilities, you name it, it was on him. My financial contributions were my personal upkeep: phone, insurance, internet, car payment, my own food, gas for my car. And of course, the quiet, unspoken understanding of my role within these walls. I worked from home full-time, my days a blur of spreadsheets and virtual meetings. But beyond my job, I was also the primary caregiver for his 4 dogs. 4 energetic, shedding, attention-demanding dogs. And then there was the house itself. I did most of the cooking, most of the cleaning. Mark handled his own laundry and usually tackled the lawn, bless him. Occasionally, he'd lend a hand with the dishes or throw some meat on the grill for dinner. It was a balance, one I thought we'd found. Dinner was my domain. I always made enough for leftovers, carefully portioning them into containers so Mark would have lunch for work the next day. I'd seal them up and slide them into the fridge, ready for him to grab. The next morning, it was a simple operation. He'd take the container from the fridge, slip it into a lunch bag, and then into his backpack before heading out the door. Easy. Efficient. Or so I thought. "You don't pack my lunch for me," he'd said recently, his voice flat, accusatory. "You should be." The words hung in the air, a sudden weight on the comfortable routine I believed we'd established. I packed the food, I put it in the fridge. All he had to do was put it in a bag and then in his backpack. Was that truly too much? Was I being lazy? Inconsiderate? I replayed the scenario in my head, searching for the fault line in my efforts. Had I missed something fundamental in the unspoken rules of partnership? Story 8. The family gatherings, at least once a month, were usually a good time. My wife's sister, my sister-in-law, Sil, and her husband were there, along with their 2-year-old. We're a family of 5, with 3 kids of our own, including a toddler, so chaos is a familiar friend. My wife and I have always approached parenting with a clear division of labor. Our kids, our responsibility. If we're out, one of us always has an eye on them, making sure they're safe, changing diapers, refilling sippy cups, the whole 9 yards. It's just what you do. If something happens, one of us is on it. But my Sil and her husband, they operate on a different wavelength. They're constantly asking for help, and honestly, it's starting to grate on me. We could be in the middle of dinner, and their kid needs a diaper change. Sometimes they'll handle it, but just as often, one of them will turn to my wife or me and ask, "Would you mind?" The other day, at a party, was the last straw. I'd just come back inside after getting something for my own kids, ready to finally sit down and eat. My Sil, completely relaxed, looked over at me. "Baby, left her sippy cup upstairs," she said casually. "Would you mind getting it?" Both she and her husband were sitting there, perfectly capable of getting up. It's not like they were overwhelmed, or one of them was tied up. In fact, there have been times when one of them was literally lying on the couch, reaching for a book, and they'd ask me to fetch something for their kid. None of their requests are massive inconveniences, I'll admit that. It feels petty to even bring it up. But there's a part of me, a growing, irritated part, that just wants to blurt out, "Look, my wife and I are responsible for our kids. You're responsible for yours. I don't ask you to change our kids' diapers or grab their sippy cups from the next room, so don't ask me." Am I being unreasonable for feeling this way? Story 9. The email blinked, an innocent invitation to my boyfriend Rohan's 25th birthday dinner. His mom, sweet and meticulous, had planned a surprise. My heart sank a little as I read the details. I was to take Rohan out for lunch, stall him until 4:30 p.m, send him home to rest, and then, along with our 8 mutual friends, we'd all descend upon the restaurant after his parents, a grand reveal. Classic surprise party. Classic disaster waiting to happen. You see, Rohan hates surprises. Not just a mild dislike, but a deep-seated aversion. His childhood birthdays were never celebrated with gifts or parties, only useful things, a pragmatic approach that had deeply shaped his view of the day. It wasn't trauma, but it was emotionally loaded. He got uncomfortable with unexpected attention, to the point where he'd tell us exactly what he wanted for gifts, just so no one messed it up. The irony of this situation was almost laughable, if it wasn't so anxiety-inducing. Just last night, Rohan and I had a small fight. He'd hidden something minor about his job from me, and I told him plainly, hiding is lying. We'd patched things up, but the conversation had left a lingering tension, a reminder of the fragile trust we were building. Later, I'd accidentally, stupidly, hinted that I was also keeping a secret from him. His entire demeanor had changed. He tensed up instantly, his voice low and firm. "If you ruin my birthday with something I didn't ask for," he'd warned, "it'll seriously mess with my mood." I hadn't told him what it was, of course. Now I was truly torn. Caught between a rock and a very hard place. If I told him about the surprise dinner, I would undoubtedly be the one who ruined it. And it wouldn't just be Rohan knowing. His mom, who currently believed I was merely his office friend, classic brown parent situation, our serious relationship still under wraps, would immediately know I'd spilled the beans. This wasn't my surprise to ruin. And in our Indian families, how his mom saw me mattered. A lot. Marriage, approval, all that jazz. But if I didn't tell him, and he walked into a surprise he despised, it wouldn't just ruin his birthday. It could seriously damage the trust we were painstakingly rebuilding, especially after my lecture on honesty is everything. The thought of seeing his face fall, of the day he was meant to enjoy dissolving into discomfort and perhaps even anger, was a knot in my stomach. Was I being an awful girlfriend if I didn't tell him, knowing how he felt? Or was it worse to undermine his mom's genuine, loving intentions and risk my standing with his family?